Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation. I am in the CNC with Lou,
Hello, everyone.
Karen,
Hi.
and I am Jesse Jackson. We are discussing The Long Dark, Season 2, Episode 5, originally aired back in November 30th, 1994. A 100-year-old sleeper ship is found adrift near the station. It has brought a deadly force with it. It's an episode. You want to start out with quick thoughts, Karen?
Yeah. The Long Dark was a good explanation of how I felt watching it.
Yeah.
With such guest stars, you would think, wow, what a great episode. And the guest stars really didn't disappoint me too much. But the episode as a whole was, and some questionable stuff happened in it. So yeah. I do like that we got a little bit of forward action, the shadows, but otherwise, meh.
Yeah, I agree. Lou, how about you?
Great title, underwhelming story, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, it was a great title, but it just didn't fly. And so two main storylines. We find a veteran of the war, Amiss, played, as you guys mentioned, by the very wonderful Dwight Schultz.
Mm-hmm.
And he's suffering from PTSD. We get some feedback that Garibaldi was also a GROPO, a ground pounder, infantry. That term comes up again in the future. That is not spoilery, just it is. And I thought that was some of the best scenes of him and Amiss interacting back and forth. I think their chemistry as one vet to another worked, and the Dwight Schultz playing it when he's as sane as he can be. And then whenever the demons are speaking to him, he played that really well, the two diversity. So, Lou, what do you think of our A1 plot, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dwight Schultz sold it to me, the character, for sure. I mean, he started off pretty rough in the very first scene. I was going like, what the heck is this? This is really weird. But then I thought, well, it's Dwight Schultz. He does crazy pretty good. So It's got to be, unfortunately for him, this role is basically what he's been typecast as playing a crazy person. But at least we got the backstory on why he's acting the way he is, and pretty tragic arc. And I was really surprised when he was still alive at the end of the episode, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just, the problem is, even though he sold it, he also had to do a lot of telling instead of showing. And I know there's TV budget restraints and whatnot, but if there could have been a flashback to this whole story of his unit being wiped out on this moon, that would have been interesting to see, even in snippets. But they didn't go there at all with that. And it's just I think this episode is just really solid proof that if you can't show what a character's gone through, telling it is a very pale alternative. And that's what happened with this episode. The only thing that really saved it was Dwight Schultz's acting, that you could sort of feel for this character, what he had gone through. And I don't know if this episode was meant as a tribute to all the soldiers that have come back from war damage and whatnot. But the other problem with it is it didn't really tie into anything that we've seen in the series before, so it was also really hard to get invested in it from that perspective as well. But this whole idea of these shadow warriors, soldiers of darkness, is an interesting one, and I'm curious to see how that's going to come back in the future.
Karen?
Yeah, same. How can you not like Dwight Schultz? And I do agree that he's typecast as this. I mean, Barclay and whatever, Mad whatever, an A-Team.
Mm-hmm.
Those were similar offshoots. I loved him as Barclay. I just want to say that right off the bat in Star Trek. One of my favorite underused characters in that. But anyway, I do think he really kind of embodied the soldier with PTSD who goes a little off the rails. A lot of our, here I am getting a little, I mean, take a drink, I'm getting a little political, but a lot of our homeless population is soldiers that have come back from war with PTSD. A good portion.
I just want to stress that, and this episode does a great job of like damn lurkers.
Right.
There's a lot of people, even the security, which quote unquote would be the police, have no empathy for a lurker, which aka homeless. And I do think that the scene where Garibaldi, did you serve? No. Well, he did it, and he left. They could have made a really, oh, dare you criticize, blah, 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 but they just left it subtle enough that you read into that. So please continue, Karen.
Yeah. And I mean, like you just said, he is what is one of our biggest shames in America, is a homeless person that shouldn't be homeless. We have mistreated our military for a long time. Once they get home, we don't feel like we have a use for them anymore. So I just think that this was part of the commentary in this episode was it's still happening in the future. And I think he really sold that. And also Anne Marie Johnson, who played Mariah, I think she did a good job to a lesser extent. I mean, I know her from In the Heat of the Night and In Living Color. She's been in a million things, but I think she did a good job, except for the whole romance thing. But as far as the Amos stuff goes, I loved his interactions with Garibaldi. Those were one of the most authentic parts of this episode. And it advances a couple things. The shadows, the lurkers, which I've been very critical of in the past.
Yeah.
And also Garibaldi, we get a little more background of Garibaldi in the war. I mean, a little bit more. We know he was a ground pounder and that he was part of a group that was massacred. So
yeah. Lou, Karen, I agree with you guys, and let's talk about this. I think the biggest sore point to me is that Mariah wakes up from 100-year sleep. She seems shocked that it's been 100 years, and it's hard to hand wave. You were in a deep sleep vessel. How many years did you think you were going to be? I mean, if you had said, wow, I knew it was going to be a long time, but now that I'm faced with 100 years, that's overwhelming.
Right. You think she would shut down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And not the minute after she finds out her husband is dead, almost kiss the doctor who's treating you.
Yes. And him, I brought you to my quarters because it's closer than the lab, but then, well, why don't you stay here and rest? No, why don't you send her back to Med Lab, right? I think that storyline totally doesn't work because she just talked about, I just kissed him goodnight.
Right.
I mean, if they had established that we were having problems on our marriage and we both thought that this mission would help us, I may be a little understanding, but they at least imply they were happily married, they were going to go together, and now then they wake up, he's dead, and hey, here's Mr. Dr. Good Looking. Let's go forward. Yeah, that didn't work at all. Go ahead, Karen.
All they would have had to do is make him just a crewmate.
Yeah.
Instead of her husband. And she would have been just as devastated to find out that he was dead.
Yes.
And there wouldn't have been an issue with her having feelings toward Dr. Franklin.
Yeah.
I mean, there is an issue, but you know what I mean? No,
I understand totally.
Yeah. It's questionable at best.
Yes. And also that is the worst part of the storyline. And once again, I really like this actress. Sometimes we talk about, and we've done this a lot lately, where we have talked about is it the script? Is it the performance? And I understand we're Monday morning, we are Monday morning quarterbacking, but it just doesn't seem to work for me and I also don't I also don't like seeing Franklin that unethical.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So,
And
Luke, go ahead.
protesting it to Garibaldi. I don't sleep with my patients. And then, yeah, you do apparently want to sleep
Yeah.
with your patient. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Luke. Thoughts?
You pretty well summed it up. It's probably the worst piece of writing I've seen so far in the series. And the thing that really bothers me is we've already seen Franklin acting outside the bounds of his Hippocratic oath. So for him to now be saddled with this unrealistic romance subplot is just not helping the character at all, because now I don't really know what he's going to do in the future, because twice he's done things that are not things that a doctor would normally do, ethically or not. So I breathed a big sigh of relief when he pulled back and says, no, we can't do this, because I thought, man, you're just you're just taking advantage of this woman who's basically like, she's in shock to my mind. And it's really easy to knock one aspect of a show, but I do have to say, the more things I watch, the more, and I've made this point before, and I've had pushback from other people on it, but I really do think that if an episode is not written well, I mean, a good actor can make a bad piece of writing, he can sell it, right? But a bad actor cannot sell good writing. So this is just another example of, like, the two actors are doing a good job with the material that they have, but as a viewer, you're watching this and you're just saying, this is not realistic. This is not how people would behave in this scenario. Now, you could claim that because she's in shock, she's just blindly reaching out for something or whatnot, but then it falls back on the doctor to be ethical. And they're just not helping Franklin with these kind of scenes when he's not acting professionally. So yeah, it's probably the part of the episode. It is the part of the episode that drags the whole thing down, because if you don't buy into the characters' actions, then the rest of the episode is tainted by it. So and it's an unnecessary, and the worst thing, it's an unnecessary subplot. Well, like, why does he have to have this? Why do they have to have this romance subplot in the episode at all? It doesn't accomplish anything. So
Right.
I just didn't understand why it was included. And the only thing I can think of that they needed to have some filler, because beyond that, it just served no proper purpose.
I mean, unless they're going to make Franklin a villain.
Or she's coming back later in the series. I don't know. But
right. And you do say, maybe she's in shock and blah, blah, blah. Okay, but they didn't portray her as being in shock.
No.
Which, that doesn't help at all.
Yeah, and so you could, okay, let's rewrite this a little bit. It's not her husband, it's a coworker that she was my long-term partner, my business partner, my lab partner, so we have a very deep connection. The shock of, oh my goodness, if I had just waited a couple of years, we would have had jump gate technology. So all this time was wasted. We did not explain new worlds and seek out new universes. We just did really nothing. And I'm going to connect, not in a romantic way, but the first person I reached after coming out of this induced coma, I connect with, and not in a romantic way, but I need someone to ground me and to ask questions. You could rewrite that. No kissing. And if there's an underlining affection because the two actors have chemistry, you could because it would be so much better, right? If we were watching this going, man, I really felt they had something between each other. I hope they explore that later, because this was nice. At least that's my thoughts.
And it seems like a really easy fix that is apparent.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's something I could rewrite, then it's apparent. They should have seen it when writing the episode. Are they trying to shoehorn a romance in? So that's why they did it this way. But I mean, why did they insist upon that being her husband? Because a slight little change, just her not being there with her husband, would have made the storyline better.
Yeah. I am going to try to, there's nothing in Lurker's Guide about it. So I will look up, should have done this before. Way to do your work, Jesse. I have the script, the books where JMS printed all the scripts of the episodes, and he did a little introduction before. I'll look and see if he had any things about that, and then if it is, I'll share
Okay.
with us
Yeah.
next time.
And on the pragmatic side, this woman's been in Cairo for 100 years. I just don't think she's going to get up and walk around a couple of days later either. I mean, but that's besides the point. I understand it's dramatic television, so you can't spend all that time. But the thing is, for her, she's and the episode just focuses on her husband. Like, what about her family? Like, what about wouldn't she like? Oh, my mom and dad, all my brothers and sisters or whatever, they're all gone. They don't explore that at all either. So, and plus, like, she's 100 years out of date. So romance, I would think, would be very low on her totem pole. She needs to reestablish her identity more than anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just no rhyme or reason as to why they included this beyond giving some padding to the episode and Franklin some screen time. But yeah, I'd be curious to know how the actor reacted to that script, because if I was in his position, I would not have been happy.
All right. I'll do some research, and I'm sure that our wonderful listeners will give us feedback. In fact, I know we have one email already about this that they shared.
And again, we've mentioned this before, but this is one of the pitfalls of doing these kind of series reviews, because now we've had a couple episodes in a row that really haven't struck home for me. And you don't want to be negative, because we want to talk about the positive things of the show, but right now, this last couple episodes haven't, and maybe my hopes were built up because everybody says, oh, the second season is so much better than the first. Yeah. But I got to say right now, not really changing that much for me. And in some aspects, it's actually been a bit worse.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair get, as Ron Moore used to say on his Battlestar Galactica podcast. He'd say, this is a fair get.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the creature. JMS was very clear that the FX did not act as well as it should have. He said, we shoot for my words, not his, but we shoot for the stars. And if we come up light, my boss has a saying, make mistakes of ambition, not sloth.
Yep.
And I agree with that. He talks about that. Like, if you're going to make a mistake, do it because you're trying to do something else. I think, based on my knowledge of the series, that they felt like it was important to show that the Shadows have other races that support them. And so this was not the Shadows, but it was another race doing this. Once again, we get a reference to Zahudun, which is has come up before and will come up again. Thoughts? And I do think that the line where Garibaldi says to Amish, you were just about to accuse the Centauri ambassador of being in league with the devil, which may not be too far from the truth, is a funny line because of what we know about him. And I don't know if that is, and Lurker's Guide brought that up, is this just a funny line or does Garibaldi know something more than we think he should know? So, Lou, let's start with you. Any thoughts about our creature and this storyline?
This whole creature subplot was like the part of the episode I'm going, okay, this must be important to something down the road.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we found out in the very last scenes there with Susan and Sheridan that the ship's course was set for the rim. But I was thinking to myself, my God, by the time this thing gets to the rim, you're going on a sublight speed. So that's weird. But I have to admit, I was confused because I said, okay, so this creature doesn't look like the shadow creatures that we've seen in other episodes. And up until this point, I just assumed that there was just one race. So it's interesting from that perspective. And it was interesting that G'Kar had a drawing of that creature in his book, which he's referenced before, I believe. And so that was interesting. So that was the part of the episode I thought, okay, this is the piece of the episode that we're supposed to pay attention to, as opposed to all the other stuff that's going on, because the woman goes back to Earth Mariah goes back to Earth at the end of the episode, so she could come back, or I guess that's one of JMS's trapdoor, so where the character could come back if he wants her to or not. So
yeah,
so that was the only interesting part of the episode, and I'm sure it's a pretty big hint that because that creature's in that book, And that book is very old, that we were supposed to take note of that.
Yeah.
And try to reconcile that with this big war that's coming.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of that subplot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed. 100%. I agree with you. That part was the most interesting part. I appreciated Garibaldi's comment because it can be taken on more than one level. We know that he and Londo are close. I mean, frenemies, maybe?
Yeah.
To use a term that we know.
Yeah.
Because we know that he hand waves a lot of the stuff he does on the station.
Yeah, he does.
And whether that's because he has diplomatic immunity or just because he kind of likes the dude.
Yeah.
There's that level. Yeah, he's a devil, like you would joke around with your friends. But I also think he realizes that Londo is unethical. And so I think on a second level, he's saying, yeah, there's something fishy going on with this dude. Ever since I woke up from the coma, I've noticed some weirdness with him. I feel like you can read that into that line.
I agree.
Like they're dropping a hint in about it. And it's mostly just the people who watch it seeing clues.
Yeah.
I don't think he punched that home, like hit us over the head with it.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, I don't mind that he didn't hit us over the head with it, and we have to read into it. Because we have been taught how to watch this kind of TV by other shows that are similar, and we learn to read stuff into lines like that when a character is murky. And I do really like the fact that we not only got G'Kar and Londo in an episode, there were significant things with G'Kar.
Yeah.
Who like I've said before, I'm starting to get more sympathetic to him and a little peeved with Londo. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we got to see that they have this prophecy and this guy is part of it, or this monster devil dude. I mean, he looked like, what is that stupid Tom Cruise movie that I haven't seen because I don't watch his movies? Legend?
Right.
Is that it? Where he kind of had the devil look? That's what I thought of when I saw him. But we have been told that the shadow people work with other races because of Morden.
Yeah.
So have they also co-opted this race to work with them? And, how far do they go with that?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Any other thoughts we need to discuss?
I just want to say that for Dwight Schultz, he had the best two moments in the episode for me, the funny moment and the most poignant moment. The funny moment was when he accosted first G'Kar and then he went after Londo and he said, "Hey, you with the hair." And I thought, all right, I'm not the only one that has that problem.
Yes, that was good. Yes.
And then the most poignant line was when Garibaldi says to him, "Well, how did you survive?" And he says, "I didn't." And I thought that hit me a little bit because he was obviously so tortured, and I thought he just killed that line, and I really enjoyed that. The other thing that was interesting was the revelation to me that the Centauri were the ones that introduced the jump gate technology to the Terrans. So that was interesting as well.
Yeah, it is a matter of tell, not show, right? But at least you had, and I think I've brought this up before, my friend Tom Zoller, who does the Love and Capes and a lot of other great series, makes a point of saying, well, as you know, Lou, should not be a line ever in any book, TV show, movie.
Butler dialogue.
Right? Yeah. Because if you know, then there's no reason for me to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in this case, it was a perfect way to throw in a little bit of, if you've been wondering about jump gate technology, here's a way this person doesn't know this, and we can explain it. And I thought of that going, I bet Lou's going, thank you. I had questions and they didn't answer all of them, but they at least answered part of them.
Yeah. I thought of you several times while watching this episode. First of all, with the hair thing, I was like, oh, Lou's going to love that.
Yes.
And also learning a bit more about history through Dr. Franklin's little talk at dinner.
Yeah.
We learned a bit more too. We learned about another war.
Yeah.
We learned about the jump gates. And really, that is such a sketchy history. You would think that he'd want to get a little deeper. I understand it's for doing a shortcut so we don't have to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I would think that he'd want to like sit down and have a heart to heart with her. But he's like, oh, all this other stuff happened. You don't got to worry about it.
Yeah.
You were asleep for 100 years. Well, whatever.
Yeah, that's complicated. You know,
Right.
the Second War, well, that's complicated, right? It's like,
Mhm.
well, okay, but I guess she still needs to know.
Right.
Yeah.
No wonder she went to Earth at the
Yeah,
end
like,
of it.
hey.
Because I got to learn all this stuff and no one here wants to tell me.
Yeah,
so-
exactly.
We should follow her.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I get is I don't know if it was intentional or not, but this character that Schultz played, Amos, or if you say it in French, is ami, which means friend. So I don't know if that was
Mhm.
a subtle.
Or a miss.
Yeah, as in he's a miss. Right.
Right.
Yes.
So it could be both of those, a friend that goes amiss.
Yeah.
But yeah, I took his name as meaning something.
Yeah. So the other thing I thought you were going to mention, I did not catch this, but Lurker's Guy did, that when he was playing very sane, as he was walking out, he had a towel across his shoulder, and he says, "And what else? I have everything that a man needs."
Right.
Which Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a towel is the most important thing you should have.
Oh,
Right.
So
okay. That
So-
totally flew over my head.
I didn't.
I just thought he was being sarcastic or whatever.
So did I, and that
Or
may be
ironic.
just
Yeah.
over reading things, but I
Yeah.
do think it's a nice symmetry because when a few years ago, it was before Thanksgiving, and someone came to me and said, "Jesse, what are you going to do for Thanksgiving? Are you just going to wear your Doctor Who hockey jersey?" Oh yeah, probably. That's such a give up. So
Mhm.
I found a bathrobe and threw a towel on and put a cup with a tea
All he needs
bag
is
in
some
it,
slippers.
and then and I went, and no one knew who I was, but a couple of people who had read Lurker, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, were
Right.
very amused that I did that.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Since we're running short, I have
Yeah.
two things I just want to mention. One's just episode specific. One's a general question I want to ask you,
Okay.
Jesse, or maybe Karen. You probably read the Lurker thing and know what this is. So in this episode, the Copernicus was prefixed by USS. Does that stand for United Spaceship, or does that stand for United States Spaceship, or do you know what that prefix stands for in the Babylon 5 universe?
I assumed, and I didn't think about it much, but maybe this was before the Earth was unified when this ship went out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because she was American, and they talked about it being American.
Hmm.
So, I mean, Sinclair says something about it being American. So,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I would guess that. I do not know for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll look that up on my own.
Okay.
And the other question is, and I've always meant to ask this, but I keep forgetting, is in the opening credits with the monologue about the B5 station, it says it's the third age of man. And I'm going to myself, so why is it what in the Babylon 5 universe makes it the third age? We're talking about, because for me, there's like the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Information Age. So what is this, just trying to mimic Tolkien or something? Or like, oh, what is the third age? Oh, Wave-a-Tell?
That is, notice it was the third age.
Okay.
So all will be cleared on what age this is. That is actually very good. You caught that up, but that is actually a story point. Probably season 3, maybe 4.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was totally oblivious to that.
Because
no,
the third age of
that's
man, I'm going like, well, I know there's like 3 ages in Lord of the Rings. But I'm
Yeah.
going, like, what's the third age of man? Because we've already had more than 3. So I'm just curious to.
Yeah.
So.
Really? Yeah. That's a really good catch. And yes, and that's what it's for.
Okay, so one of the things I noticed, and I looked up, not in the Lurker's Guide, I looked up in Google, was that the drug that he administers is called Devalera.
Okay.
And I don't think it has anything to do with the episode, but he was the third president of Ireland. That's the only reference I could find to it. I have no idea whether that was meant to be part of the episode or...
Yeah, according to Lurker's Guide, he was known as with a real gift for rabble rousing.
Okay.
So a drug to a catatonic patient named
To rouse
after
them.
yes.
Okay. So it's
Yeah.
like an adrenaline type
Yes.
drug.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe it's something that's used to wake up
Hmm.
cryogenic people.
Yeah.
Like it's made just for that. But anyway, I see it in the captions of the show and I thought, well, I'll look that up. And
Oh, very nice. Cool. All right. Rankings. I'll go first. This is 2 episodes in a row when it was time to rewatch. I've got to do this versus there's other times where I go, oh, good. I get to watch this episode again.
Now I know why
Yeah.
you wanted to sleep in last week.
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, if it had been one of these other episodes, like, no, even if I only had 3 hours sleep, I can't wait to talk about this. So I'm going to give it 6 out of 10 long, frozen nightmare sleep hangovers. Yeah, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Lou?
Yeah, I'll give it 6 out of 10 Botany Bay spacey
Yeah.
episode references, I guess. I don't know.
And by the way, Next Generation did an episode where they came from the past, and I think did a better job of talking a little bit about that.
Agreed. They did several episodes like that with people out of time, quote unquote.
Yeah.
All right.
Whether it's, a planet that lives in its own time or someone that they wake up or something.
All right. And Karen?
I am with you too, 100%. 6 out of 10 super apt episode titles.
Yes. Yeah, I do think JMS is very good at doing titles.
Well, I mean, for this one,
Yeah.
it's ironic because it felt like an eternity watching this episode.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good title, nevertheless.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any feedback? And did you get the email I sent you, Karen?
I did. Let me
You
go
want to read it? Thanks.
No. Yeah, let me find it. I'm really sorry. I should have had it open.
No.
Okay, so it's from Nathan. Hi, Nathan.
Hey, Nathan.
Great to see you. I think that you're the guy that is one of my tweets. So say hi to me on tweeters if it's you. But anyway, he says, hey guys, congrats on getting through the most sexually inappropriate episode of Babylon 5. It was never as consistently bad as Berman's Trek was, and it's B5's low point in that regard. The whole story was always baffling to me. It wouldn't take a genius to notice that a woman that has just found out about her husband's death is not an appropriate prospective partner, and that's if we forget about the fact that she's a patient. So the story is a twofer. Very 90s, every woman is a love interest, and obviously written by a man for a show with a man at the helm. Oh my God, yes. No, I get it. 100% man stuff.
Yeah, I hate that because JMS is one of my favorite writers, and I do
but
think
it's true.
But yeah, it just doesn't seem to work.
And there are a lot of misogynist tones in this show, which I tend to forgive because that's just how it is. I mean, I'm coming from the perspective of a woman. This isn't Nathan talking, by the way. I'm coming from a perspective of a woman, and this is pervasive. I mean, I'm just used to things being misogynistic. So, that's sad, but it's true. Okay, back to Nathan's comments. If you really wanted to make this part work, a crude idea I had is to have Mariah have some rare after effects of cryogenic sleep, or for her to be under the influence of the devil creature. She would try to seduce Franklin, and it would make her a more credible suspect. Why doesn't she care about her husband's death? Did she kill him? And then it would have turned out she had a hallucination and thought that it was her husband. But no, they have to write Franklin as a lover boy doctor who tries to smooch every woman he encounters at his job, which is annoying. Get laid somewhere else, dude. With regards, Nathan. So a great email with feedback.
Yes.
I loved it.
June Lockhart's daughter, right? He also had a little connection with her. So yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And not that she was a patient. She was not.
No.
But still, why? Why is he the dude that's, perving on everybody?
And Stephen Franklin is a good-looking man.
Sure.
So I get that, but yes, give me a little more appropriate. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but standing next to Bruce Boxleitner, he's not.
Well,
That's all I can say.
yeah. Franklin's the medical version of Captain James T. Kirk, I guess.
There you go.
And Lou, anything on our YouTube channel?
Oh, yes.
Yay.
Quite a bit of stuff about jump gates. And we've heard back from Khan 6070, and Karen already replied to him, but I'm just happy to tell you, Jesse, that we're all rehired for the podcast.
Yay.
So he took it was all in fun. So that was good to know. And
I mean, we knew that already.
yeah,
but...
we did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're just closing the loop on that whole mini saga
Nice.
for us. And he agreed with our take on the episode. It just exists. Nothing special, but nothing awful either.
Yeah.
And then, I can't wait to find out what the meaning of this name is. Texas Anal Shock. Anal Shock?
Ala Shock?
Ala Shock. Okay. And Nathan and who else is there? Simon. They're all jumping in on the whole jump gate technology and how it works. And it seems clear because these people are veterans, so it seems clear that this is never really locked down explicitly because they all come up with different explanations. Some of them agree with what we've been saying, others offer different explanations. So I highly recommend that to any listeners to go check out these comments because it's it gets it kind of goes down the jump gate wormhole a little bit, I guess. But I think the bottom line is that again, it's just we have to understand that certain ships can jump on their own without the need for jump gates, and really that's what it comes down to. How that ties to jump gates and how far they can go from a jump gate before they're lost and all that. That's all up for debate, as well as everybody agrees that what happened inside the hyperspace jump gate where the Cortez was lost was pretty lame. So that's good to know that we're all of the same mind on that. And what else?
The Delenn comment.
The Delenn comment is a good one that Nathan agrees with you, Jesse, that it's pretty clear that she doesn't explain anything because she's used to ordering people and not taking or offering explanations because she's a member of the Great Council. And so somebody's in your corner. I'm still a little miffed at her lack of openness. I think it's just a lame, or not a lame, but it's a cheap plot device. It's always like relationship stuff where they say, can't explain it, it's complicated. Well, dude, that stuff doesn't fly anymore. Like that's old school writing. So, and I understand the show is old. So holding back things deliberately when you know that in normal real conversations people would talk about these things, but there's been a lot of things that have been predicated on the fact that somebody wouldn't talk to somebody. So I'm not stuck on it, but I just find that kind of storytelling a bit annoying. That's all.
Welcome to romance novels.
Yeah,
it's all about the miscommunication in romance novels.
Yeah,
and I do like that he clarifies that Carl Sagan seemed to be the first person that said star stuff, because I had forgotten that, and it was nice to see. I love Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
So I was gutted when he passed away.
Yeah. But I have to think that concept is so universal. Well, not universal, but it's so, I don't know what's the right word for it, but it's maybe Sagan came up with it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was something that went back to like the Greeks or the earlier philosophers or whatever, because it just seems like such a universal concept. Thought. That it's hard to believe that somebody wouldn't have thought of it before Carl Sagan. But
of course, I just think he popularized it when it came to like the science community and the genre type community, because I think that is the first place I heard it was him saying it on Cosmos.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I agree with you. I'm sure. I mean, I know the concept was long before that, but I think he just made that into a more poetic statement.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to go and read the other comments, where can they go and leave their own comments, Luke?
Well, you can go to YouTube to Lou's Reviews and look for the Babylon 5 playlist. And along with that, you'll find podcasts for Stephen King, the writers' interviews that I do, as well as our JKLM media episodes where we've covered devs and I'm drawing a blank on what
Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass.
And we're currently doing Station 11, and we're about halfway through that now. We're 3/4 of the way, I guess. So look forward to that. And you can find me on Twitter at Lou's Reviews and S King Podcast.
All right. And Karen?
All that stuff that Lou just said.
Yes.
And I'm at Elevaria several places. Twitter, I'm looking into other things as well, which is weird, but I have a post account, which is in beta right now, Counter Social as well. I don't think I'll be doing Mastodon because it is more like a Slack, like a community where you don't speak to the entire world. But anyway, that's my little plug for at Elevaria, wherever social media is sold.
I may look into us getting a Slack channel for this podcast to see, so we could
Sure. I mean, I have Slack open all the time because we use it at work, but yeah.
So that's a thought. Yes, you can send us an email at jklb5podcast@gmail.com. You can find me at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can hear me talk Bruce Springsteen on Set Lusting Bruce, Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere, and John Hyatt on Perfectly Good Podcast. Next week, a spider in the web. Talia is caught in a treacherous web of intrigue after she witnesses a murder. And we have a couple of very significant guest stars, but I will not mention them here so you will not be spoiled. But I think that will be one of our first things we discuss is some of the guest stars next week. All right.
Cool.
So as always, Lou, Karen, this is a blast. It is fun talking about even a less than stellar episode. It's nice to know that overall, the episodes that as a whole fandoms has not liked, a couple of you guys have enjoyed more than normal. So it's nice to know sometimes that, nope, this was a swing and a miss. I think the only important thing is, there's other creatures that support the shadows. So let's see what that means. All right, listeners, take care, be safe, and we'll talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And scene.